We're at the Cobleskill United Methodist Church. They're about to put on the Christmas pageant. I can't talk very loud. They're getting ready. There's the angel.
A long time ago, someone very wonderful was born. We all know him as Jesus Christ. Another name we call that wonderful child is Emmanuel. Emmanuel is a name that means God with us. With is a very important word. It means not alone. God with us. God is with us. We can be with each other. With is a word all about love. With is a word all about closeness. With is a very special word for Advent, for the story of Jesus being born. The baby named Jesus is also called Emmanuel, which means God with us. And in a very special mystery, the story of God coming to be with us is filled with us learning to see God in each other. Are we ready to tell the story of God with us and seeing God in each other? The story of Jesus' birth starts like the story of so many births before Jesus came. First, there was Abraham and Sarah, disguised as strangers. Abraham saw God's love in them and welcomed them in. And the angel said,
"Do not be afraid. You will have a child. This child is an important part of God's story."
But Sarah said,
"You've got to be kidding me. That's not possible."
But the angel said,
"Do not be afraid. You will have a child. This child is an important part of God's story."
From Abraham, generation after generation unfolded. Parents became grandparents, who will become great-great-grandparents, who will become great-great-great-grandparents, until, and this is going to be long, great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents. And these grandparents upon grandparents that we call ancestors remember the story of Abraham and Sarah and these ancestors who expected more miracles. And so they told each generation, and if I do this again, that means you have a line right up there on the screen.
God is love. God is with us. God wants us to love. God wants us to be with each other. We can see God in each other. You did well in your first line. You're going to have multiple lines throughout it, but you'll be cued on the screen here. We're going to intersperse our pageant with some singing, and our first song is Emmanuel, which means, in case you didn't pick it up, God with us. To remind you to sing, the refrain will be on the screen, and we're going to sing it through twice after we have a trumpet introduction.
Zechariah and Elizabeth. They wanted to have children, but they could not. An angel came to Zechariah and said,
Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. You will have a child. This child is an important part of God's story. This child will help people see when God comes very close to us.
But Zechariah said,
You've got to be kidding me. That's not possible.
the angel said,
Do not be afraid. You have a child. This child is an important part of God's story. This child will help people see when God comes very close to us.
Elizabeth believed what the angel said. She became pregnant and paid very close attention to the child growing inside of her. As her ancestors taught her, Elizabeth spoke to the child.
God is love. God is with us. God wants us to love. God wants us to be with each other. We can see God in each other.
Even inside his mother's womb, the child listened and learned to see God in each other. Elizabeth and Zechariah had a child, a cousin, a very young girl named Mary. She was very young, but very wise, as very young women tend to be. She did not feel ready to have a baby, but an angel came to Mary and said,
Do not be afraid. You will have a child. This child is an important part of God's story. This child is Emmanuel, God with us.
But Mary said,
You've got to be kidding me. That's not possible.
but the angel said,
Do not be afraid. You will have a child. This child is an important part of God's story. This child is Emmanuel, God with us.
Mary remembered what her ancestors taught her.
God is love. God is with us. God wants us to love. God wants us to be with each other. We can see God in each other.
Choir is going to come up and lead us in a special piece.
Okay, that's all for now.